Hello everyone, this is your host Professor Reha here with the SMITE Beginner's Guide to the Support Role. Now this is going to be a one-off video. I'm going to do one of these for each of the roles. This was a request by Robert Larson to talk about the role from a new player's perception. So this video will be assuming you have never played SMITE before, but I also hope that if you have played SMITE but you haven't ever played support and you want to learn about it, that this video will also be useful for you in that particular goal as well. Now, specifically, what you're looking to do as a support is three things. The first and foremost is keep your allies alive as best as you can. This is going to require defense, which SMITE calls protections, and health. If it isn't giving you if the item isn't giving you defense or health, then it should be providing some advantage to your allies. Alright? Those are the two qualifications for an item. Does it make me tougher? If no, does it help my teammates? If no, don't buy it. Do not get that item. I'll talk about items in a bit more detail in a bit, but that is the general rule there. Keep your allies alive, be as strong as possible so you can absorb damage for them. The second one is to initiate. You are theoretically supposed to be one of the two people on your team to pick a target, say, we're going to go into this team fight with this person as our chosen target, and I'm going in right now. I'll exemplify that as time goes on. Boy, this loading screen is really wacky. Okay. But there we go. But that is your primary two goals. There is a secondary goal of, if the enemy initiates, then it is your job to counter-initiate. Again, I will talk about that over the course of the match. I will give specific examples, but keep these three goals in mind. These are the end goals of the support. You will die quite often for these. You are not supposed to get kills. That is supposed to be the jurisdiction of your allies. Alright? That is how this works. That is what the intention here is. I'm going to get the war flag because whenever an enemy dies or getting an assist, provides a stack that provides movement speed and attack speed for your allies. You gain 4 more stacks from assists. Each time you damage an enemy, once per ability, you restore 15 health and mana to nearby allies and gain 10 gold. In other words, this really helps your allies a lot. Now, the two crossed swords, the red swords here, is physical damage. That god does physical damage. The blue sun is magic damage. That god does magic damage. Keep that in mind. The enemy team has 3 physical, so I'm going to want to skew my defenses a bit more towards physical protections. So I'm going to start with sovereignty. Working towards sovereignty. You will notice that sovereignty will eventually come up to 45 physical protections and 250 health, and gives an aura around me where allies will have their physical protection and HP 5, or their passive healing, increased. HP 5 being that number on the far right of the green bar. That 8.9 means that over a 5-second period, I am healing 8.9 health, which is not much, but that can get much bigger with the right items. Now, I started with my freeze because this, first off, stuns enemies, like you can see right there. And second off, it means I take a little bit less damage here. And third, I'm not quite at risk of accidentally killing any of these enemies, because that is Kenanos' job here. He is my hunter. He is one of the primary people you want to defend. Your hunter and your mage are your primary targets for defense, I will say. That's the best way I can kind of explain it. You want to keep those two alive the most, because they do the most damage. Alright? Now, I'm going to play this one pretty safe. He's getting some poke here. This is poke. We're not actually getting into a full-on fight here. He's just getting some poke. He's now working on the minion wave. We're just trying to get the assists, so that way we can get to here. There we go. And then we're going to miss her completely. That's fine. She backed off, so it all worked out in the end. Okay, good. Some extra damage on Xingxian. And he's just going to try to poke them out from here. Which is good, At this stage, in most laning phases, you're mostly just trying to poke the enemy until they're low enough for you to actually, kill them. I have Blink as my first item because initiation, of course. Okay, I'm taking a lot of damage, so I'm going to back up here. But I was able to give Kenanos the time he needed to farm. He's clearing the wave a little bit faster than Tribdis. We're still going to take this a little bit cautiously because I don't know where the enemy jungler is. Keep an eye on the mini-map in the upper right corner. The enemy jungler is probably is definitely Thor, I can see right there. So we're going to want to look for Thor's face on the map and see what he's doing. Okay, I almost died there, but it looks like we're going to be able to get... Okay, there he goes. And then... Good, good. I don't think he's going to kill her. No, he did not. I was so close. Oh, no. Now, that one was... That was a gank from the enemy mid and jungler. It happens. It's fine. I now need to be building more wards so we can see that kind of thing coming. Okay, that is your next step. Now, Caranos is still in a good position. He's actually 1-1. Charybdis is 1-0. Caranos is a little bit behind, so I'm actually going to leave the lane. I'm going to switch over to mid. So, also, Kukulkan didn't call the right missing, so we had no idea. We were so focused that we were using the audio cues. You have to really hear more than see a lot of the time, so that happens, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to leave Caranos alone in lane specifically so he can solo farm and catch up to Charybdis, though. So, that is my main intention there. Also, he's got a little bit better sustain, but that's not really something that we need to worry about as supports necessarily. Where is he going? He's going for the experience camp. Okay. See, Caranos is level 4. Charybdis is level 4. She's probably still a bit ahead of him in experience, but it's fine. You don't want to do this. You are now cut off. And that's going to be a lot of damage on my boy there. That is a Thor. And now we're going to run. Don't do it, Tsukiyomi. You don't have the health for that. Why is Kukulkan still... Oh my goodness, my teammates are so aggressive. Okay, that worked out alright overall. We'll apply this cautiously. Okay. That's Janos' ult for free. So we're just gonna... Nope. Think again. Ooh, that was close. Oh, I couldn't do anything about that. There's nothing you can do to stop that. That's okay. Let me see, I don't know where anyone is. Ah, yeah, I was trying to go up and put up some wards. I didn't know they were right there. That was on me. You do want to ward pretty heavily as a support. You want to give your allies information. That's very important. I'm going to wait just 2 seconds for... There we go. You know, it happens. Xingxian is a little bit ahead of me. That's fine. He's not doing that much better than me. I have sovereignty now, so it's going to give me... You'll notice my HP 5 has gone up by quite a lot. It is now 46.6 health. I am regenerating every 5 seconds. So that's, you know, a start. I'm providing extra bonus physical protections to my allies, and I'm getting extra bonus health and physical protections of my very own. So we are in a good position here. I don't know necessarily what Xingxian is building. Potentially Gauntlet of Thebes, which is a similar item. Provides 10 of each protection. Lots more protections for himself, but it has to stack. We're just going to go here. Normally, you don't really want to kill the wave, but Kukulkan is not here, so we're going to just soften the wave. There we go. And then, yep, we're just going to back up. And oh, there's actually a fight going on over here that I almost didn't notice. We're going to put down another ward over here so that we can at least see what Janos is doing. It was a bit bold there, Kukulkan. A bit aggressive. Alright, so one other thing you may have noticed is that the support relies extremely heavily on their allies to deal the damage. That's normal. That is what you're supposed to be doing. You are just there to keep them alive so they can do that damage. That is your primary goal. Sometimes, actually a lot of the time, you'll find yourself unable to save them from themselves. I've noticed that a lot of the times, if I can't save someone, it's because they're way too far up or they're massively out of position or something. Like, right now, we're out of position. We shouldn't be here for them being right there and them being ahead of us a little bit. Okay, they're having an issue over there. Where are you going, Janus? Middle. Yeah, he was definitely going for, I don't know where he went. I have no idea where Thor went, but that's fine. I know he's somewhere in the right jungle. I think. Probably. Alright. Notice I'm trying to really not use too much on the minion wave, because again, Kukulkan is supposed to be clearing that for the experience. You're just trying to sponge a little bit off of that. Whoever gets the final blow on the minion gets the most golden experience. So you really don't want to be necessarily killing too many minions on your own. You know, the occasional accidental minion steal isn't going to be a huge problem, but it's not something you really want to get into the habit of. Notice also, because of my, hanging around with Kukulkan in the mid lane here, I have now passed Xingxian in level here. I am 2 levels higher than him. This is just from me farming. He was wandering around the jungle for a little while, wasting some time. I think we have a nice gank here, but I'm not sure. Xingxian went too far after Kukulkan. Oh. Okay, he used his ult. That's fine. No, we still have somebody over here? Oh, it's Thor. But Thor is out. I don't think. He did get Thor. Okay, I'm impressed. I'm going to have to go in there and save him. Oh, nope, he's got it. I just needed to tank the tower for him a little bit. Okay, so he's clearing those. I'm going to let him clear those because he heals off of jungle waves, I believe, if he's built the right item. Yes, he has, okay. I just want to make sure Xingxian doesn't ult Kukulkan right here, or blink on Tsukiyomi. Nope, we're good, okay. Oh, I'm going to go over there and gank that, maybe. At this point, with Kukulkan in the middle of the lane, he's not really going to have any kind of problem with Xingxian, honestly. Xingxian isn't going to hit him hard enough for that. She can pass under that, huh? Interesting. That's a shame. That's a shame. I did not know she could pass under the wall. I thought that was going to block her. I've never actually played Ymir against Charybdis before. Alright, I need to be in mid lane. I spent too long in right lane. Janus's ult. There's Janus. Okay, yeah, I should have been there. I was out of position there. How did you miss that? Oh my goodness, these people can't hit anything on me. What? Again, we're just going to try to save this up for Kukulkan because we don't actually want to kill these minions for ourselves. So we're just going to... Notice how little damage also they're really doing. It's because of sovereignty. Alright. There's Janus. We're just going to keep on... Oh, I need to be helping him with this. I'm not paying enough attention to my minimap. There we go. And... there we go. Okay, so... both Janus and Xingxian are here. That's fine. Thor is to the left. Looks like Xingxian might be going left as well. Nope. You do nothing of the kind. Oops, I'm not fast enough for that. Alright. This could get kind of ugly.
An enemy has been slain.
I did not intend to steal that kill, but there was also nothing I could really do because I was trying to stun him at the time. There. And with that wall, I have saved them on. Except, unless, of course, okay, no, he's going after Tsukiyomi here, which is fine. Good. Notice that I slowed down the... what's his name there? Osiris, so that way the Tsukiyomi could get the kill. Vaman got out alive, so we did our job just fine here. I'm going to leave the left lane because Vaman needs that experience. That's none of my business. That is not my experience. Are we going for him? We can. And I just tank this. That's it. We'll just take this tower really quick while we're here. And then, you know, that's what you do as a support. You take the damage for them. You crowd control the enemy as much as possible. That is what you do. Now, if you see a pros will play some gods out of role. For example, I've seen Serket supports. I don't recommend this. She doesn't have enough crowd control. There will be people who disagree with me on that, but I'll stand by that one. Serket support does not have enough crowd control, even if you can build her properly. As an example of an assassin, normally a jungler, playing out of role. Let me see. I'm not 100% sure what I want next. Let me see. I want this next. We're going to go for the Breastplate of Valor because cooldowns means I get to stun and slow enemies more frequently. Cooldown reduction just means that your cooldown's down here, 14 seconds, 8 seconds, 16 seconds, 90 seconds. That just makes them go by faster. That is the point of cooldown reduction. It is one of the few stats that doesn't directly increase your defense or your survivability, and yet it is something that you do want to be picking up so that way you can bust out more abilities to help your allies with. Looks like Thor barely got away. That's fine, because Kukulkan also was able to get out alive. And we're just going to keep on slapping him, and then there he goes with that. I was way too slow on that one. I'm just going to tank this, that way when Tsukiyomi walks in here, he doesn't get hit by this. I'm going to probably die for this, but that is okay. The Xingxian was picked up, at the very least. And like I said, you will die for your team quite often. That is part of the job. It just depends on, is your death worth it? For example, right here, Tsukiyomi died. Vamon dying in left lane had nothing to do with me, so that's not necessarily me dying in vain for them. But unfortunately, Tsukiyomi also died, so it was not a great death. I was really hoping that the enemy would focus a bit more on me and ignore him, but they did not. They weren't paying enough attention, unfortunately. Keranos was just a hair too late for that. Which is okay. I mean, you can't be everywhere at once. I'm going to have to go over there. I can see Thor on his way over. Thor ulted him. Okay. Now I'm going to have to run my way over there and see if I can save Keranos, which is going to be interesting. They're going to die for him, I can already tell. That's right. Back off. Just being here sometimes is all you really need. Now, this is a minion wave that I'm not really going to have much of a choice but to eliminate because they're so low on health. And that's just the way it is sometimes. I could have stood there and tanked them, but I really don't have the time. Right now, I think I need to be in mid a little bit more because there's a lot of enemy activity near mid. I want to put down some wards while I have them as well. I just didn't have the time to stand there staring at minions until Keranos could get there, so I just killed them off since they were low anyways. Viviano's here. I want to go over there to the left lane and... Get out of my face, Xingxian. That's not worth it. Oh, he's going in? Oh, he just used his... Okay. Alright. Oh, that was a nice ult. Now, you'll also notice that I have not been leveling up my ult that much. Okay, that was a complete whiff. That is because my ult does not provide quite as much crowd control as a lot of my other abilities do. I'm just trying to keep Xingxian off of Tsukiyomi so he can continue working. Yeah, we're just going to go for this. There he goes. Is he going to... I thought for sure Giannis was going to pop out of there. Alright, and then I think we can leave the minion wave to take care of that. Kukulkan will probably finish that off, yeah. Charybdis is dead, so she's not going to come in. It's just Giannis and Osiris. We don't know where Osiris is. There's Osiris. We can probably gank him, honestly. I think that's what we're going to go do. Gotta be there to support our team. We're going to cut him off over here. I did not want to kill him. Going to increase the wall. Notice again that just by, you know, passively letting our allies kill the minions, we're still ahead of Xingxian. He's not doing particularly great. I'm not sure why he built... Well, I can kind of understand Heart Ward, but I don't think it was the right choice, but we'll talk about that at the end of the game. Right now, I'm still working on my cooldowns. I built Pestilence because I want to lower the enemy healing. I suspect that they will. She's got lifesteal that she's going to be building up, which is every time she hits somebody with an attack, she's going to heal a percentage back of that. Very nice. Now I just got to see if I can save my boy here. Nope. No, I'm not really likely to save him. He's got too little health. I don't have any mana left for this. That was excellent. I was somehow able to stall them long enough to prevent them from killing Tsukiyomi. He's going to try to bait us into the Fire Giant. He missed. Like I said, I don't have any mana, but that actually, support role is one of the few roles where you don't really need a whole bunch of mana. You don't need any mana at all to continue being functional. You can just body block and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to body block those melee attacks, but you can body block melee attacks if you're able to get between the target. Notice I held back so he could finish him off. That's not worth it. Nope, no, no, no. I don't have the mana for this. I don't need to worry about Vamon. I do need to worry about Vamon. Here comes... Yeah, back off. Back off. I don't even care right now about anything except keeping Janus out of this fight. Oh man, he's gonna die. No, he's gonna be fine. He made it out. Okay. Ah, shoot. Really? Janus. Make sure he gets out of here. The wall was mostly to make sure that the Janus couldn't continue pursuing. Janus can move very fast. That line Janus puts down increases his movement speed, so it was possible that he could have caught up to Vamon and killed him with an unstable vortex. So I wanted to put down the wall just to ensure that. I knew he just used his portal to attack Vamon, so I knew he wasn't going to have it for a couple of seconds, so that was going to provide all of the time that Vamon needed to get out of there. Now I want more magic protections. I think we're going to go with Shogun's Kusari or Oni Hunter's Garb. I'm not sure which. To get myself some extra defense there. I'm kind of leaning towards Shogun's Kusari because Kernanos and Vamon can really benefit from it with the increased attack speed. But yes, that is currently my plan. It looks like we have a nice fight in the jungle, so I'm going to go over there and do something about that. Now you'll notice in the bottom left corner, my physical protections, the shield without the blue fire around it, is 194. My magic protections are 143. You really want to try to keep a balance of both, even if the enemy has... Oops, that was a mistake on my part. He's going to pass right through my wall, so I can't block him off right now. Just trying to help out Vamon here. Get him. Yep, there you go. Excellent. Alright. Now I'm going to tank this. Nope, my allies are backing off, so I need to back off as well. They don't feel secure enough, so we are going to back up. I see somebody else already has... Okay, Vamon has Shogun's Kusari. I have a little bit of a better idea then. You need to get out of here. I will die for Tsukiyomi here, I'm guessing. No. No, we don't have the health for that. We will die if we attack the Gold Fury. We're going to go for Talisman of Energy. Alright, Talisman of Energy is going to provide MP5, or passive mana regeneration, movement and attack speed to nearby allies whenever I get an assist. It's kind of like War Flag, but it doesn't heal HP, basically, and it gives you a lot more magic protections. It gives you some health. It's a good time. No, actually, this is a bad time to try to go and get the Gold Fury right now. They're all alive. Thor could just ult it, so we're not going to do that. And right now, what I'm doing right now as a support is trying to figure out where the enemy is and anticipate them, so that way when the enemies try to start a fight, Xingxian is over on the left there, so that means they're going to try to start a fight over here, so we're going to come over here. Now, again, just like your job is to initiate fights, Xingxian right here has chosen to initiate this fight. He doesn't have his allies with him, though, so this was not necessarily a good idea. There's Thor. Notice that the enemy team followed where the enemy support is. That's generally how you are supposed to be. You were supposed to be following the support into fights. And they made... Well, the Xingxian and the Osiris made a mistake. They initiated a fight that they they couldn't finish. They didn't have their allies close enough, and we had more allies in the area than they anticipated. Is what it comes down to. When you are a support, you have to be very careful about your fight initiation. They initiated a very bad fight there. They didn't have their allies close enough nearby to get them out of that problem. They didn't have any visibility on us, it looked like, because they would have known that we were all pretty close to the area. So that was definitely a hugely bad, a very badly chosen fight for the enemy support. That was a terribly selected fight by the Xingxian. I'm looking for Charybdis because she's going to keep on split pushing unless we slap her down. No. Okay. She went back and got the oracles. That's fine. Again, I'm going to go back because it doesn't look like the enemy team is in any kind of position to be starting a fight. So I'm fairly safe in going back at this point. We're going to grab some wards because right now, at this point, I want to know more about where the enemy is and where they're going than anything else. I didn't buy sentries because right now the only objective up is the Gold Fury on the right there, and I just don't really feel like that's super important right now because we are a good 8 kills ahead. We have a good, at the top of the screen, 24 to 16. On the left and right, you can see the gold totals. We are a good 7,000 ahead, so we are going to just put this here. And again, I'm just looking for information on where the enemy is. I know Thor is at the damage buff, and I know they can see this. That's what this red circle is. That is from the oracles. These 2 harpies there. Okay, there it goes. The Janus ult in desperation. They were way too late. We got that very clean. This is excellent. I am now going to try and put down a ward over here because I just want to, again, see where the enemy is. Vamana is over on the far right. They're likely to rotate and try to pick him out because he is very far up. He's very far out of position. He can probably last a good long time because he is our solo lane, who is supposed to be durable and the hybrid of tanky and damaging. So he'll last a good enough amount of time where that's not going to be a huge problem. I can just dive into that tower. Again, notice how little damage I'm taking. Notice that they all backed off. We're just going to take this tower for free. They're not even going to contest it because they can't. Right now, I am so tanky and defensive that they can't really get away with attacking me. They played that well. They played that well. Right now, they're looking for what is called a pick. It is an individual that is way out of position. They were trying to bait me in there to see if they could separate me from my allies. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm in here. That's fine. Now, that ult there, if you're confused about why I bothered doing that when no one was actually in the ult, was because I was zoning out the enemy for that. I was just making sure that the enemy wasn't going to be passing through that area because they weren't going to go into my ult so close to exploding. They were afraid. So that was what is called a zoning ult, which just is there to either discourage, which is what I was doing there, or outright prevent the enemy from getting in and doing anything with that. I can hold this door open. There you go. There we go. We can probably take this. I will be backing off so I don't die for no reason. Vamon can tank this. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to back off. We get out of here. No allies are in particular danger. You know, that's fine. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so that worked out really well. That was a great fight. We were able to control the enemy team just enough to where our allies could come out on top. We lost one, unfortunately, but that's okay. You can't get everything perfect every time. And again, you know, it happens. Enemies get picked off. The assassin is pretty hard to keep track of for a support, and they're the ones usually that are going to slip past you when you're not paying attention. We're actually going to go back and finish Mail of Renewal at this point, because that is something we really want. It'll push us to 200 minimum magic protections. Now, I'm going to put this formula in the description down below, but there is a formula for how much protections actually mean. But you have what is known as diminishing returns. Let me put it this way. When you have 100 of a protection, you're taking 50% of the damage from that damage type. When you have 200 of a protection, you're taking 25% of the damage that you normally would be. Now, there is penetration, which I'll talk about at the end of the game when I'm talking about items a bit more thoroughly, that make it as if you don't have as much protections as you do, so you always want to massively overcap your protections if possible. I don't usually go all the way up to 300. I want to be grabbed there because that meant I could make sure that they didn't even need me for that. But penetrations will make it as if you don't have as many protections as you do, so you do want to overbuild these. I usually try to stick around 200 personally. So right now we're just going to try and attract the attention of the Titan. I just want to draw some damage here, but Cananos did. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of protections, of penetration, and of items. And also a little bit more about the items and why I built those as opposed to other things, right? So, over the course of this match, I was talking as much as possible about why I was going where I was and stuff. If you have questions, I know it's not going to be perfect. I might do a second episode of this just so I can illustrate a little bit more the ideas, the core ideas here. But let's talk about why I built what I did and about penetrations, okay? So first off, I built War Flag because it gave me some health, it gave me some MP5, meaning that I had the sustain that I would need to really make sure that I had the mana to use the abilities I needed to stun people with my freeze, to slow them down with my icicles, or to wall them off. Furthermore, the War Flag has this very useful passive. Getting an assist when an enemy dies provides a stack. I read this to you at the beginning of the match. You can read it as well here. But the point of War Flag is that I am boosting the abilities of my allies with this. Now, I chose this one specifically because out of all of my allies, and this is something that you're going to have to just figure out as you get better at the game and you understand more about the characters. But I know Cernunnos uses attack speed. He is a hunter. Hunters use attack speed, okay? Just by default. In most cases, in almost all cases. But when you see a hunter, attack speed focus is a safe bet. So boosting his attack speed is a really good thing. The second is Vamon. Vamon also uses attack speed with his ultimate. Now that's not something necessarily a lot of people are going to know just out of the gate, so that's something you just kind of have to, again, eventually learn. But I knew that these two used attack speed, and I knew that I could at least support with a little bit of damage through my own auto attacks because of my passive, which you'll remember doubles the damage of my... I didn't actually talk about that. My Ymir's passive doubles the damage of his basic attacks after he has damaged an enemy with one of his abilities. Additionally, whenever any enemy is damaged by an ability from Ymir, they deal 10% less damage to your allies. So Ymir's abilities, besides stunning them, besides slowing them down, also make the enemy, for the next 4 or 5 seconds, do 10% less damage. In the early game, you're really not going to notice this, but in the late game, this can actually rack up a lot. This can really rack up because 10% less damage from someone like an enemy hunter or an enemy jungler is quite substantial. But anyways, I'll talk about that a bit more in detail when we get to those people. But yes, I did build War Flag specifically for the attack speed boost for Cernunnos and Vamon. Vamon can also really utilize the attack speed. Kukulkan, I'm sorry, not the attack speed, the movement speed. Kukulkan doesn't have a natural escape, so the movement speed really helps Kukulkan as well. So both of these were really able to use a lot of the benefits of War Flag. Even Tsukiyomi, to some extent, could use the benefits of War Flag here. So that's why I picked that first. Sovereignty here I chose specifically because, again, primarily the aura. Allied gods within 70 units have their physical protection increased by 15 and their HP 5 increased by 35. Right? In other words, they're healing 7 more HP a second as long as they're around you. This is a really great thing. So, I build this, I get some health, and I get some protections so I can tank or absorb more damage. That is what tanking is. And this was my first item, specifically because, like I did when I used the tab key at the beginning of the game and came up with the scoreboard, I realized that Thor, Charybdis, and Osiris are physical damage gods. Now I knew that from the loading screen, because I've been playing this game for a long time. But you might not have played this game for very long or at all. So it just holding tab and looking for the crossed red swords for physical or the blue suns for magical, and you'll be able to figure out what protection you want to prioritize first. If there had been more blue suns, then I would have built a different item than sovereignty, but they had more physical, so I built sovereignty first, so I could give my allies a really great early game protection boost. Next, I built Pestilence. This was something I built more for this specific video than anything else, because this is something that you will usually be buying as a support. Most enemies are looking to heal themselves. It's completely understandable. They want to survive, and in order to survive, they need to be able to heal themselves. Pestilence reduces that healing by 25%. Whether or not this is strictly necessary really depends on the context, and you do have to be keeping a very careful eye on what the enemy is building throughout the game to really be aware of who is building what and how much lifesteal they're going to be using, etc. Alright? In this particular case, I made an assumption, and I was correct. Now, I was able to make this correct assumption because of years of experience, and a lot of other, even players who have only been playing for kind of a decent amount of time will agree with me here that a lot of the time it's a fairly safe bet that the enemy is going to be building self-heal, especially certain enemies. For example, Osiris had Death's Toll, so he was already at least somewhat interested in keeping himself alive, getting some sustain. He built Stone of Gaia. I mentioned that I wasn't sure necessarily what the item was going to be. I believe I saw this when it was the original gem, but I might not have been paying attention. I might be thinking of Xingxian, actually. Actually, I was. But he built Stone of Gaia, so I'm reducing that health. He's normally gaining 0.5% of his maximum health every second, but I'm reducing that with Pestilence, right? Xingxian, same thing, Stone of Gaia. Slower HP regeneration. Tribdis had Leather Cowl, and she also had Aussie. You have 20% physical lifesteal here, which means Tribdis was healing 20% of her damage output. She was healing herself by that much, and of course the passive, if she's below a third of her health, she gets an additional 30% lifesteal, so whenever she's under a third of her health, she's healing half of her damage output. If that sounds impressive, it is for a hunter. But we're going to come back to this later. But you can see that the enemy, here with Soul Gem, at 4 stacks, your next ability damages an enemy god, deals bonus damage equal to 25% of your magic power, and heal yourself and allies within 20 units for 30% of your magic power. So this can be quite an impressive heal, and of course there's 12% lifesteal on that. But a lot of the enemy team, the only one who didn't was Thor, were healing themselves in some ways, so Pestilence really came in handy, and it's a pretty safe bet. Even if you don't necessarily need the passive, the aura there, you're still getting 80 magic protections and 250 health, so even for its core stats, it's still a really nice item. The physical version of this, by the way, is Contagion. The magical version of this, by the way, is Heart Ward, just so you know. I built the Breastplate of Valor as my 4th item because specifically, again, we had 3 enemy physicals, so I knew I would need a little bit more physical protections. Also keep in mind, if you've never played this game before, enemy minions and the enemy towers both deal physical damage. Right? They both deal physical damage. So, not only did the enemy team have 3 physical damage gods, but they also had the physical damage from the towers and from the minions. I did reference this with the sovereignty very early in the game. But anyways, Breastplate of Valor not only gave me physical protection and some more mana to have a longer duration of casting spells, so I can keep casting spells, I don't run out of mana. It also gives me 20% cooldown reduction, which means I can cast more spells, well, more of my abilities, I shouldn't be saying spells, more abilities, and be able to stun people more frequently, which is what I originally talked about when I first bought this. Talisman of Energy, this goes back to the same reason I bought War Flag. I wanted to boost the attack speed of my allies, and I wanted health and protections at the same time. Cue Talisman of Energy. 60 magic protections, 300 health, and I'm boosting the movement speed, attack speed, and MP5 of my allies nearby for every assist that I get, so they get to attack faster, they get to move faster, and that's a really great thing. And then finally I finished off with Mail of Renewal, good amount of health, a little bit of both protections, and whenever I'm hit 5 times, no, it is 4 times, whenever I'm hit, it is 5 times, what the heck, I can't read for some reason, anyways, every 5 times you're hit, you're healing everyone around you and yourself by 15% of their maximum health. Obviously, this is quite potent. This is a pretty substantial potential heal here. In terms of healing in this game, it is actually very impressive. So I was able to also heal my allies as well. That is why I built what I built. Alright, Now, we're not really going to talk about a lot of the other builds of our allies because that doesn't really matter, but what I am going to talk about is some key points here in terms of the enemy. Specifically, Xingxian's build was fine. You look at the Gauntlet of Thebes. He's getting 50 of each protection, he's getting 300 health, and he's providing a aura similar to my Sovereignty, but 10 physical and 10 magic protection. It's a great item. That's fine. You know, and he's got Heart Ward. I do question Heart Ward, and I mentioned this earlier, but my team had 3 physicals. Vaman, Tsukiyomi, and Kernanos. Heart Ward Amulet should have been a Sovereignty like what I had. He built this probably for the MP5, but there are better ways of getting MP5 and getting the physical protection you need, and this is one of the reasons why Xingxian was dying so much. Yes, he probably also was thinking to himself, Kukulkan's really slapping, so maybe I should build some magic protections. This is not the right way of thought. You've got minions, you've got the hunter, you've got the assassin, and Tsukiyomi was able to do a lot of damage to Xingxian in a lot of fights for this reason. So, you know, there is that as well. You know, Breastplate of Valor is fine, Stone of Gaia is fine. Really, Xingxian had an issue with the second job of supports. Xingxian understood that their job was to tank the damage. They had no problem with that throughout the game. They understood the keeping their allies alive. They understood all of that. The problem with Xingxian in this game, and I mentioned this earlier, was their initiation. They kept starting fights with their allies too far away. As a support, it is your job to start the fights. Yes, but you also have to keep in mind that when you're starting a fight, your allies should be nearby. Alright? The only other reason you would want to start a fight is so that you can create a distraction for someone else to do something. The Gold Fury, the Fire Giant, split pushing. Now, Charybdis was making an attempt at split pushing, but when Xingxian and Osiris attacked Vaman in the left lane, at that point, Charybdis was not anywhere near close enough to the tower to be able to really effectively start pushing that down. It took her a bit of time afterwards. Actually, she just started shooting at the tower by the time we were done killing Xingxian and Osiris. They initiated the distraction fight far too early. Janus, who was looking to get into the fight, was not able to arrive in time because they started it too early. I'll say it's the second hardest thing a support can do. Keeping your allies alive is either really easy if your allies are good, or really hard if your allies are insane. Again, and I reiterate this because it's very important, as a support, you rely very heavily on your allies to do their job. In random games like this worked out really well for me. My teammates were good, they knew what they were doing, they were right there with me a lot of the times. When I communicated that we needed to retreat because I didn't think that I was going to be able to survive long enough to keep them alive, they got out. If I thought there was a bad situation and I wasn't going to be able to keep them alive because of that situation, even if I lived, and I said retreat, they listened. That the second to last time we were at the Phoenix, when it was just Vaman Kukulkan and I, towards the end there, I said retreat, even though I was in really good health and really good mana, not because I couldn't necessarily sustain anything, but because I knew the enemy team was going to be respawning soon, and I wasn't going to be able to keep my allies alive through a 5-man attack. So I called retreat, we needed to regroup, we needed to go in with all 5 of us. Xingxian did not do this. He consistently went in either by himself or with only one other person, again, in fights where he did not have the information on where we were. He did not know where we were, because if he did know that 4 of us were in that left jungle, he never would have started that fight. And he just went right in. So this is really the difference. He did the tanking job of support role decently well. It was that initiation. He kept going in by himself way too early before his team was ready. That fight in the right lane, when we took the Phoenix, yeah, he went in very early there as well. You'll notice that he went in, Thor went in, and no one else really came in after that. You know, we went in, walked under the right tower, I tried to get Thor threw his hammer and teleported away, and then Xingxian attacked me, and that attack was fine, because he rooted me, which meant that I couldn't chase down the Thor and potentially wall him off. That was fine. Xingxian's mistake was jumping in further and trying to get a good ult off, when that was not the situation to use his ult. He did not have his allies nearby. That ult was going to do nothing. And that's really the difference here. Okay? I want you to really understand that you have to be very careful about the initiation. Go back. If you go back through this video and you watch who I blinked to and who I froze, you will notice that these people were just a bit more distant from their team than maybe they should have been. Now keep in mind that I was able to get away with that a lot as Ymir because I could stun the original target and then wall off the other enemies. I did this more often towards the end when I had the defense to be able to take that damage, because obviously the enemy team is going to react, and some of them can get past the wall very easily, those of whom have jumps. For instance, Thor can teleport through the wall with his thrown hammer. Osiris can jump over it with his ult. There are going to be enemies that will be able to get past my wall anyways, but I did create a level of separation there several times between one of the members of the enemy team and their team through a combination of a blink, the freeze, and the wall. But I couldn't do that so much in the early game because I just didn't have the kinds of defense. I tried a couple of times, and it was also successful a couple of times. There was one in mid lane, if I'm remembering correctly, that was quite effective. But if you go back and watch specifically when I engage in fights, I am finding someone just a little bit out of place, and in all but one of my initiations, I made a mistake on one of them. My allies were really close by, and I mentioned when I made a mistake, I mentioned that I went in and my allies were leaving and I needed to get out of there. If I'm remembering that correctly. This is my second time recording because the previous match, the enemy team surrendered, and I didn't want to have this be a surrender, because obviously I wanted to complete the full game so I could talk about the late game support. So I did play a match earlier, so I might be mixing up some of my memories here with the previous match where the enemy team surrendered. And I didn't want to upload that because, again, I wasn't able to talk about the late game supporting. Now, when you are a support, the biggest threat of your life is probably going to be the hunter, because hunters usually will build a large amount of what is known as penetration. Now, I'm going to bring up the stats here. Keep in mind that my physical protection was 227. Let's round that up to 230 for easy math for a second here. Alright, actually, even better, we'll round that down to 200. Let's pretend I just have 200 physical protections for nice easy maths. Now, here's how protection works. I'm going to take Tribdis as a very specific example because she's got an interesting build for this. So, Silver Branch Bow has 10% physical penetration, right? What this means, very specifically, is that whenever Tribdis attacks me, she is attacking me as if I have 10% less protections than I actually do. So for 10% physical penetration versus a pretend 200 physical protections. Actually, we can go up to the 230. Yeah, so her 10% penetration right here, 10% of 230 is 23. So I was essentially, to her, I didn't have 230 protections. I had 207. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal. Wow. 207. Big whoop. But she also had Aussie for 15 flat penetration. You'll notice that there's no percentage sign after that physical penetration. That is 15 flat penetration. It is a straight 15 reduction of your protections in the view of that character. So I go from 203 protections to Tribdis. Tribdis attacks me as if I have 203, down to 287. 88, pardon me. 288, right? So, I'm sorry, 188. So, when she attacks me, it's not like I have 230 protections. It's like I have 188. I keep saying 200 for some reason. Okay? I'll throw this up in the description down below as well, just in case I'm messing up my numbers too much in my head. Because I do keep saying 200. But that is basically what's going on here. The 10% affects first. The 10% happens first. I'm down to 203 protections from 230. Then the flat penetration kicks in. That's 15 just flat. I go down to 188 protections. And that still sounds like a lot, but let's talk about another example here. Thor. Thor has 20% physical penetration here. We're going to ignore the passive for a second. So the 20% physical penetration. Okay, great. So that's, instead of me being down to 207 from my 230, I am now down by a whole, I'm down 46, 20% of course of 230, you do that to, you go for 46 there, right? And that winds up being a good old 184, right? Okay, so now we're, below 200 already, and then he has 10 flat penetration here, so now we're down to 174. Now, you still are probably thinking to yourself, Professor, this doesn't sound too threatening, and normally you are correct. But there are items that we will be talking about. I'm actually going to pop out of here. I'm going to go into the God selection screen, and I'm going to pick on her. And we're going to go into the God Builder here. I'm going to kill this for a second. And, the regular penetration doesn't sound so scary. I got down to the lowest of 174, right? Boo. But there is a particular item of Executioner, alright? Basic attacks against an enemy reduce your target's physical protection by 7% for 3 seconds, right? Maximum 4 stacks, so this maxes at 28%. Now, you'll notice that this says reduces your target's protections. If you think that this means this applies to the entire enemy team, you're correct. When somebody hits you with shots while they're, with any basic attacks, while they have Executioner, the entire enemy team is damaging you like you don't have those physical protections. Now again, this is physical protections, so the enemy magic users, the magic damage people, don't care. They're not going to see any effect from this. But the enemy physical damage people will 100% do extra damage to you as a result of this. So going back to 230 protections, let's assume you've been shot 4 times by a hunter with Executioner, right? So we're going from 230, we're losing 28% of our protections, right? And then we're down to, just with one item, 166 rounded, 166 protections. And then you factor in the percentage penetration, because that happens afterwards. Then you factor in good old flat penetrations, and you could potentially be down by quite a decent bit. But this is why it's important to have around 200 protections. It's items like this. You want to try to remain, after penetration, after protection reduction, you want to try to remain between 100 and 200. Because otherwise you're just going to die too quick to tank for your enemies. Now there is another item of note that you should know about. Void Shield enemy gods within 55 units have their physical protection reduced by 15%, and don't think for a hot minute that magic users don't have similar items. Behold, Demonic Grip, which is basically the magic version of Executioner, and you've also got the famous Void Stone, which is the magic version of the Void Shield, obviously. But these can all potentially stack up and cause your protections to go down by quite a lot. So it is really important to try to reach a approximate goal of 200 of each protection. Not because you need that much, but because you need excess, so that way when the enemies start reducing your protections or start building their own penetrations, you're not going to die. Now I am kind of thinking of doing a part 2 to this. So this is just going to be part 1 of talking about the support role for beginners, but, I do want to talk a little bit more about initiation, but this was a great example of initiation and the importance of it. That's something that a lot of supports get wrong, as the Xingxian really indicated in that match, and initiation is definitely tough. Initiation is tough personally. See, in terms of protecting your allies, the difficulty of that depends on your allies. I didn't have to work too hard to keep them alive. There were, a couple of, pardon me, there were a couple of hairy moments where it was like, wow, I can't believe I saved you, and that was just somebody being caught out or something. My allies were very good, but I did have to work decently hard at that, but I didn't have to like go into the ugliest of situations to try to save them from really stupid mistakes. I didn't have to do that. My initiation, though, was really good. I initiated, and even if the initiation failed because I was a little too anxious or my allies didn't want to pick that fight, they didn't like the fight, they didn't like the scenario, I was still in a position to walk back out. And whenever Xingxian went in, he really did not give himself any of the options to get back out. He really dedicated himself to the fight once he was in it. He kept picking very bad fights or initiating on very bad fights. But that is one of the things that you have to do as a support, is initiate and counter-initiate. I had a lot of great opportunities to counter-initiate Xingxian. You will notice I was able to stun him quite often, or freeze him quite often, because he was always initiating really bad fights. You know, the early game was a bit rough, because he's, you know, got a decent amount of damage for his support. But, you know, once he hit the mid-game, he kept trying to pick these same fights that he was able to get away with in the early game, and it just didn't translate. So, I hope this was educational. I will be doing more parts of this. I will not be using Ymir for another part. I'm going to be using my favorite support. I won't say my favorite support because Kepri is my favorite support, but I will be using the Guardian that I think personifies the role the most. I'll talk about that later. But this is episode 1 of the Beginner's Guide to the Support Role. I do hope you enjoyed. I hope this really helped. If you like this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, or if you are a support main and you want to share an anecdote or a story or something that you've personally found very useful, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm expecting a Gem of Isolation comment at some point, because Gem of Isolation is quite the interesting item, and I will talk about that in future with a more specific Guardians. I just didn't want to broach such subjects to those of you who are experienced support mains. I didn't necessarily want to bring in Gem of Isolation in part 1 here. We'll be talking about that later. But I do hope that those of you who are support mains, maybe offer something down in the comments below to those who are new. Thank you very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.